School teacher turned stand-up comic Joy Behar is here, and later, the Clintons. They're not here, but did they blow it, and can they fix it? A Washington journalist who interviewed every high official at the White House, Elizabeth Drew. So stay with us. My first guest started out teaching high school dropouts and then realized she preferred the stage to the classroom, so she dropped out. She's an award-winning comedienne whose film credits include This Is My Life and Woody Allen's Manhattan Murder Mystery. She also hosted her own radio call-in show on WABC Radio here in New York for 3 years. And I'm happy to welcome, this is the first time I've really met her, Joy Behar.
Hi,
Joy,
Roger.
nice to see you. I've heard about you a long time. You're one of those. We have an all liberal show tonight. Elizabeth Drew, Joy Behar, but don't worry about it because I'm here to provide a little balance. Yeah. You're known as a very liberal comic. Are you personally real liberal, or is that?
Well, I was very liberal on the radio.
Yeah.
My comedy is you know, I'm an equal basher, I think, in the comedy because
yeah, because you have to hit whoever's right.
Whoever's in charge gets it.
Now, I would suspect with your sort of interest in things that you were not watching the Super Bowl game. That's not something that you wrote down. And did your husband watch? Your husband looked like a liberal, too.
Well, he's not really my husband.
Oh, he's your boyfriend.
I know that that's not a conservative thing to say. But
no, it's okay. I don't care if you're not. Hey,
but listen,
whatever you two do is your...
But we've been dating for 13 years.
13 years.
Yeah, so he's really my spouse.
Does he just have trouble making decisions, or do you? Or
no,
you guys are happy that way?
We like it that way, you know. I always say I want a man in my life, but not in my house.
That's true.
Because,
that's
you know, it's like
no,
he
really... seems like a nice guy, but not a Super Bowl type
He
guy.
is, exactly.
Really?
Oh, yeah, he was glued.
Really?
Yeah, he was glued.
And you didn't watch it?
I was inside,
You didn't watch the commercials or anything?
Oh, I did see Patti LaBelle. She looked like something from outer space.
She's not Tina Turner.
Yeah. She's no Tina Turner?
No, with the legs. I mean, I think the dress was a little short.
Oh,
don't
yeah?
you think? Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't look at it that way. She looked like a space
I thought they were my
cadet.
legs at first. I mean, at first glance, I thought they were mine.
Is
and then
that
I realized
so?
they'd been shaved. And I realized, but they had very much the same shape as my legs. And I thought, this is probably not the best dress for her.
I think that it was just nice to have a break from the OJ trials.
Yeah, it looked a lot like the halftime ceremony. Sort of looked like the OJ trial. They were chasing each other and throwing chairs and things. I
mean, today during the trial, Cochran was giving yet more of the opening comments, and it was on every station, which I think is. It was on 2, it was on 4, it was on 7, 5, 6 o'clock. It's still on every single station. I mean, you're forced to watch Ricky Lake. There's nothing else to watch.
Have you watched Ricky Lake? What's going on there?
Well, everyone's a hoe on Ricky Lake.
Yeah.
You're a hoe. She's
you a hoe. I'm a hoe.
I'm a hoe. All God's children, God's a hoe.
Do you think there are people who watch that who don't know what a hoe is?
I think they know now what a hoe is.
Okay.
It's in the dictionary. Hoe.
Yeah, hoe.
See Ricky Lake.
See Ricky Lake show. Did you really start out as a teacher?
Yes.
And then just said, this is it, I hate these kids, I'm out of here.
No, I didn't hate the kids. The kids were fine. It was the job that's difficult because we don't have a strong enough system, and it really works against the teacher.
Well, I thought they had, like, teachers' unions now, so the teachers only get, you know, 2 hours on, 4 hours off kind of stuff.
Well, no. Basically, you have to be great for 25 hours a week when you're a teacher. You've got to get up in front of a class and be hilarious and brilliant and also keep the discipline for 25 hours a week. Who has this kind of stamina? I don't.
And the pay is not great.
The pay is, please, no.
People think you're Jewish, I read, and you're Italian?
I'm Italian.
Yes?
Joy, my name is Josephine Victoria Occhiuto.
Occhiuto. Where'd you grow up?
Brooklyn.
Yeah?
Italian mother and father, both.
Now, are parents living, or?
They both deceased a couple of years ago. They both
Does your
died.
family, in general, did they think when you said, I'm going to go into comedy as a way to make a living,
yeah.
did they think that was a good idea, or?
Well, I was almost, you know, I was in my 30s already.
Really?
Yeah, I already had another life when I decided to do it.
Well, you were married once.
I was married. I got married very young. I have a daughter, 24-year-old daughter.
Were you any good at being a wife?
I don't even know how to answer that question. Tell me what your definition is
Well, I
of
don't
a
know.
good wife.
Well, I suppose it's somebody who's compatible with whoever you married. I mean, he'd have to be good at being a husband according to what you wanted.
Well,
and you'd have to...
I think that I make a good girlfriend. I'm not sure that I'm such a good wife because I'm not one of these dutiful. I don't like the routine of housewifery. It's not really for me. I'm Italian. Of course I can cook.
Yeah, you can cook.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that was bothering this marriage?
No. Well, you know, when you get married, were you married very young?
Yes, I was married once when I was in college. Yes.
Exactly. So you know, you're not married to that woman anymore, right?
No, I'm not.
These things tend to, you know, go in different directions.
I went down to the bakery once and never came back. It was...
The bakery?
Yeah, she sent me to the bakery, and I thought, you know, I don't want to do this. And that's why I just kept going, and I haven't been back.
I see.
That's true.
Okay.
Story. I came to New York.
Do you have children?
Huh? One daughter.
From that union?
No.
Second.
No, yeah. And she's grown up, and you know, she was like you. She went through a very left-wing period.
Yeah.
But then
A phase,
because one time she borrowed a cashmere sweater from me and wanted my car and borrowed money from me, and then began to get angry at me because I earned money from corporations that were polluting the atmosphere. In her mind, her teacher had told her that anybody who works for a corporation must be polluting the atmosphere. So I said, I got a great idea. Give me the money back, give me the car keys, and give me the cashmere sweater, because I know you wouldn't want this dirty money. And that cured her, and she started to think about it.
So now she's
far to the right of me.
She's working for Gingrich now?
No, she's far to the right of me. Tell me about Gingrich. Do you like Gingrich? You must enjoy him as a comedian. You must have material.
Last week, for instance, the guy says things that just don't make any sense to me.
What did he say?
Well, he said that women could not be in combat, for example.
No, he said that they were not biologically suited to combat.
Because
they get yeast infections.
No, because every 30 days they get an infection.
No, he did not. I saw the tape. He said because they are prone to infections. He didn't say every 30 days.
Well, what kind of infections is he talking about?
He's talking about a yeast infection. If you live in a ditch for 30 days, you will get an infection. And guys don't mind it.
Do the words jock itch ring a bell?
Yes, and the guys don't mind that. So what he's saying is men basically like to roll around in the mud and play army and do those things. And women don't.
And men like to go hunting
But what he also
giraffes.
said, but if they played the whole clip, what he said was that combat has to be decided based on how you define it. If you're saying, can a woman be in combat on board an Aegis aircraft carrier commanding a system of computers to bomb the enemy, a woman may be much more suited to that than a man because they're very good at computers and they're much better at sitting still. Now, I frankly thought that was a little
That's
bizarre,
ridiculous.
too.
I have ants in my pants. I'm constantly moving around. It's ridiculous. I would be so bored and get sick at a computer all day.
He was not. You were a teacher.
Yeah.
Newt Gingrich is a teacher. He was not saying, well, he still teaches at Kennesaw State and some other places, but the point is that lecture was not in the context of politics. He was talking to a bunch of students in the classroom. You said yourself when you were a teacher, you had to entertain them, you had to say funny things, you had to keep their attention.
Yeah.
So he was doing that as shtick in the classroom, which
Off
of course.
The record? You mean one of the?
Well, no, they had a crew in there, but he was entertaining the students.
Yeah, I see.
That was used in political context.
Well, now that he's the Speaker of the House, everything's going to be used in political context.
I'm just saying that the context, of course, you know, and there are a lot of people who agree with him that men like to roll around in the ditch.
Yeah, well,
What else bothers you about him? Well, be honest. You don't like his hair, you don't like his look, you don't like his politics.
Somebody said he looks like Chucky. You know that doll, the killer doll, Chucky?
I don't know that doll. No.
You never saw that movie?
No, I never saw that.
It's a harmless-looking doll that has like a little square head like his, and then all of a sudden it comes alive and it goes, nah, nah, nah.
Well, now, Bill Clinton. Do you like Bill Clinton?
Well, you know, the thing about Bill Clinton is he's never gotten over the fact that he supposedly slept with Jennifer Flowers, and the whole country holds this against him continuously.
I'm not sure that's true.
Oh,
I don't
come
care.
on. They say that they don't trust. Of course, you don't care, but a lot of America cares about stuff like that. I don't care either. In fact, I thought it was in the Constitution that American presidents had to sleep on the side with somebody.
Well, that's what Phil Gramm once said. The only problem with getting elected president is that he's so ugly he would never be able to convince anybody he had an affair, and therefore he couldn't get elected.
Well, I'm glad to see he's in reality about a few things.
But you don't really think that thing is what's causing Bill Clinton trouble?
Partly, I think it's got to do with that. I think that they just think that he's not trustworthy. Because
Does that have anything to do with the fact that he's changed his position on every single issue 100 times?
The waffling is not good.
That's not helping.
I agree with you. Okay. But the thing about him is that the deficit has come down since he's in office. The crime rate has come down, and still people don't give him credit for anything that he does. Why is that? You tell me.
I have no idea, but I would guess. I think you're right. I think it's because people don't trust him. But I don't think it's related to Jennifer Flowers.
Well, that's one thing. That's one thing.
Okay, we're going to have to take a break. We're talking with comedian Joy Behar. Joy, where are you appearing? Do you have anything coming up? I've got 15 seconds.
Yes, I'm going to be at the Treehouse in Norwalk on the 17th.
Norwalk, Connecticut?
Norwalk, Connecticut, and the Brokerage Pub on the 26th out on Long Island.
Okay, you got it, and you can give us a call, 1-800-988-TALK. Back in a minute.
Oh, you take calls.
That century when Rubens was a painter. Am I right? Look at this. See this woman here? This is what they used to look like. Look at it. You know, come up to the bed in the morning, want some coffee, honey?
I'm talking about how men love their bodies and will walk around naked and have no problem with this, whereas women are totally embarrassed about their bodies all the time because we never live up to what we're supposed to look like. But men, they walk around naked. They don't care.
They do?
The love handles can be on
out?
Go to the beaches. You see them just wailing around the beach. Women are sitting quiet with things on top of them, caftans over their heads.
Well,
covering up
what does that
cellulite.
tell us about women? That tells us that the women have given up their minds to advertising. That they feel they have to be this cute, slim thing, and they're terrified if they're not, right?
Yeah, but for centuries, women are objects, right? Sexual objects. It's not changing. It's the same thing.
Men weren't?
No, not
How
like
did they
women.
get together?
Come on, Roger, you know this.
Men weren't?
I'm talking about being objectified.
The difference is men never minded it.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know.
Why is that?
They never minded it. I mean, women
They love
it. Right.
As a matter of fact.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
So it isn't that they weren't sexual objects, it's just that they didn't care.
Well, that's because men were always
You think
valued.
I care that I'm a sexual object?
That's what my point
you think
exactly.
That this bothers me? You think that, I mean, I have no...
But men are revered for their minds and their accomplishments, so if they're sex objects too, it's gravy. Women, if they're just revered as sex objects, it's not enough.
Well, I love Cindy Crawford's mind.
I'm sure you do, Roger.
I think it's one of the great minds
of the Western
world.
You know what? And I appreciate Rush Limbaugh's body. How do you like that?
Hey, I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that.
Call him up.
I hope if he's watching, call in, Rush, if you're watching. Actually, if you folks at home have a comment or a call or a question for Joy, you can give us a call, 1-800-988-TALK. 1-800-988-TALK. What were you going to say?
I worked with Rush over WABC
Yeah, he told me that over at ABC Radio. How did you two get along,
Well,
right?
we were friendly enemies. You know, you get along. I got along fine with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you worried about doing this show with me because you knew that I didn't necessarily agree with your political views?
Well, I don't.
This show's not about either of our political views.
You're not a fascist.
No, you're not a communist.
Exactly. Let's shake on that. You know what? This is like the détente of talk radio. I love it.
It could be this easy in Bosnia if they
Eat
would
your
just sit
heart
down
out,
and talk.
Yeltsin.
All right, now, why did you get out of the movies? I read that you once quit the movies, or you were in a movie and then the director made you cry.
That was the first movie I ever did.
Well, how did he make you cry?
He was just nasty to me, and I couldn't get it. You know what I mean? I had to walk, talk, chew gum, everything at one time. It was very hard. And I couldn't quite get it fast enough, and he didn't have patience, and so I started crying. It was pathetic to see a grown woman crying.
It is sort of pathetic.
But you have to, and also...
Now, if a guy did that, what would we think?
If a guy cried?
Yeah.
Well, ask your friend Dick Armey, see what he would say.
Hey, he's getting beat up pretty good for that slip of the tongue.
The old slip of the tongue.
Well, when Al Gore stood in front of, the NAACP and gave a speech and talked about, he mentioned the Klan and then said something else, but it was a slip of the tongue. The press never picked it up.
No.
When Bill Clinton has a slip of the tongue, like he said, you know, African Americans are just like ordinary Americans. He said that to a black reporter about a month or 6 weeks ago. They didn't pick it up. Now, let me just ask you a question.
Yeah.
If a Republican, if a Republican had said those things, do you think it might have gotten picked up?
Yeah, because the Republicans are perceived as anti-minority.
By who? The media?
By the media, maybe. Yeah. That therefore, when a Republican says it, it looks like a racial slur.
whether that's fair or not.
You know, I mean, it's like Dan Quayle was talking about family values. Meanwhile, the Bush administration was cutting back on family leave. They wouldn't, you know, they didn't want to really help out families, and yet he's talking about
But family values has nothing to do with how much the government spends on families. Family values has to do with how the family, whether the family stays together.
I know that.
Only you liberals think it's about money.
But wait a second.
It's not about money.
But what about family leave, giving people time off from work so they could be with their families? That's not about money. That's about being with your family.
Unless I'm mistaken, the liberals down there right now, and the speech the president gave last week was all about cutting back a lot of things.
Well,
because we're sort of in debt.
They got him by the short hairs now. He's going to have to do it.
He's got to do it.
He's got to do it now, yeah.
Yeah. And you don't think he really believes it either, do you?
You know what? I don't know.
Yeah?
I don't know what he believes. I think he wants to win again.
You're one of the great liberals of our time, you realize, and you're sitting here telling me you have no idea what he believes.
I wish that he would. You know what? He could learn from Newt to speak his mind and say what he thinks, the way Gingrich does it. And Gingrich could learn to have a little more empathy for the little guy out there, and the two of them would be friends like you and me.
Yeah, well, there's a point there. I think it is good. Should people in government disagree, or should they try to get along? If they don't disagree, that means they have no opinion, really. They don't have a point of view.
I don't mind that we have Republicans in power as long as the executive department is still Democrat. When it's Republicans in the executive branch and in the Congress, then we're in a lot of trouble.
But we never had that in the last 40 years.
Thank goodness.
No, but in 40 years, do you think the country's in a little trouble right now?
Somewhat.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've had 40 years of your side in the Congress running it. Do you think there's... How much time do you need?
Wait a second.
I mean, 40 years. You want another 40 years?
There was a Congress that was Democratic, but we had Veto Bush in office at that time.
Veto Bush?
Yo, Veto.
Yeah, and then we got non-veto Bill. Bill can't say no to anything or anybody, apparently. It's a little difference.
Except to Hillary, yeah.
Well, I mean, she's tough. I always think if there's a national crisis, I hope to God she takes over. She's a tough lady.
She's a smart woman. But then why are they after her? They feel threatened by her?
Well, no. She blew it on health care. She came out and tried to turn health care into socialism, and the country caught her and pulled her up short.
Okay, so why can't we now say, okay, now do it again and do it this way?
Question. Well, because they don't want it that way. Health care was never, ever, ever about health. It was always about creating a federal bureaucracy and making more people dependent on the federal government. And if they couldn't do that, they weren't happy. It was never about making people well.
Yeah.
It was always about getting people on welfare.
But you know what?
Basically.
Okay, when you come
All right,
back.
I got to take a break here. 1-800-988-TALK if you have any calls or questions, or you want to get in this conversation, or you're a communist or a fascist, we'll take your call. All right, we'll be back right after these messages. We're back with one of today's leading comedians, Joy Behar.
We're fighting off the air.
Yeah, we're fighting off the air. We're fighting in the breaks. We've got a call from Richard from New York. Richard, you're on the line.
Hello there, Joy.
Hi there.
Joy Behar.
Yes, Richard. Hi.
How are you doing?
Okay.
Richard.
Well, I'll tell you, I used to listen to you on WABC, and I don't think I ever agreed with anything you ever said, even though you were really trying to be funny.
Richard, do you not like her because of her politics?
Not at all.
Well, why did you listen to her?
I think
You're an
she's a
idiot.
great comedian.
He likes me.
Oh, he
But
likes you
from a
because...
political standpoint, I think we've got the right ingredients. We're really got the right president. I mean, he couldn't do anything more wrong than he's been doing. I mean, in 92 minutes on a State of the Union message.
Well, listen, wait a minute. First of all, he did 81 minutes.
Okay.
And what's wrong with the President of the United States taking an hour and 20 minutes out of a year to tell you what's going on in the country?
Well, if he'd only tell us exactly what's going on instead of reciting the budget. My problem has always been with Joy from the standpoint of, I used to enjoy some of her humor, but when it came to the political stuff, it was always, the Republicans were always wrong, and the Democratic liberals were always right.
Well, but they've got Rush Limbaugh on that station, and he takes the other point of view, and there's nothing wrong with having a point of view, is there?
I think that's what talk radio is about. I was the person who represented that point of view.
Did you say nasty things about Republicans?
Here and there.
Yeah.
No nastier than your friend Rush Limbaugh said about Democrats.
Well, what does he say about it?
Well, he calls feminists feminazis.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He says there are about 20 women in America who are dedicated feminazis. These are not women. These are not this is not all women. That's a misnomer by liberals. He says there are some. These are women who are totally dedicated to you getting an abortion, whether you need one or not.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
That kind of stuff. Look, hey, there's a certain amount of humor in that, you know. Now, what did you say that was nasty?
I don't remember.
All right, we're going to go to Missouri to Lyle. Lyle, you're on the phone with Joy.
Hello there.
Hi there.
Hey.
How you doing this evening?
Hi,
Well, we're okay.
Great. I was wondering why is she concerned with, or so frightened, I guess you might say, of conservatives after having 40 years of liberal rule in this country?
Why am I so frightened of it?
Yeah.
Well, the rhetoric is a little frightening to me.
In what way?
Well, she didn't like him saying that men were piglets and women had infections.
I don't like the way Gingrich talks about, you know, cavalierly throwing kids into orphanages, and we're going to cut welfare and we're going to take kids away from mothers who are under 18. That type of talk is very volatile and very nasty, and I don't like it. I don't like it. I think it's dangerous.
It's all everything is being taken out of context, though.
Well,
I mean,
let me put the orphanage in context. What he said is, if you have a choice between throwing a kid in a dumpster, which is what's happening in our society, or putting them in an orphanage, where would you rather have the child?
Well, I don't think that's exactly how it went down. I think
that's how he said
it had something to do with a woman under the age of 18 having a child that she couldn't support. Rather than be on welfare, let's take the kid away and put him in an orphanage. I believe that was what he was saying.
Well, what he was saying was that orphanages well, go ahead. Lyle,
okay,
did you have something?
I apologize. I had the pleasure of being Pat Buchanan's campaign chairman during the '92 primary.
Is he going to run again? Has he called you?
No, I do not think that there's going to be a '96 campaign for Pat.
Okay, Lyle, thanks for calling. We got to take another call here. We're going to the great state of Pennsylvania. Richard, you're on the line.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, Roger?
Yeah.
This is Richard from Pennsylvania. First, I agree with the first caller. I used to listen to Joy all the time. I got a laugh out of her, which is what talk radio is in part about. But what I don't understand is how Joy could say that she doesn't know where the president's coming from one day to the next, but at the same time she says she supports him. What does she support?
I support the guy's basic feeling about the country. That's what I support. I think that he cares about poor people. I think that he cares about minorities. I think that he cares about homosexuals. He cares about women. Wait a second. Underneath all of the wavering is a guy who cares about people that I care about. And I don't think that the Republican Party cares about us.
Joy, wait a minute.
Women, minorities.
He cares about
Well, you're wrong about that, but go ahead.
He says one day he cares about them, and the next day when the Republicans come up with some program, he says, well, he's for that, and that means maybe he doesn't care about them. Maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he doesn't know what he thinks, and you know he doesn't know what he thinks.
Well, okay, thanks for your call. You know what I find interesting is your callers here are conservative. They all listen to your radio show.
I know. Listen, I had high ratings. I always had a lot of people listening, and yet, you know, I went off the air.
Yeah.
You figure that one out.
Well, they have liberals over there now, don't they?
Oh, come on.
Do they? I don't know.
No.
No way, huh? Well, you know, conservatives have done better in talk radio. Why do you think that is? There's a lot of whining by the press and whining by the Democrats about the fact that talk radio is filled pretty much with conservatives.
Well, the guy who runs that station that I was axed from says that he can't find a funny liberal, and yet your conservative listeners are saying how funny I was, so you figure it out.
Well, that's an interesting comment, but there is a feeling in general that liberals are more concerned about, you know, social problems and so on, and talk about that in a kind of depressing way.
I never did.
Yeah?
My show was fun.
You talked about social problems in an uplifting and happy way.
Well, I mean, you know, I can throw a joke into anything practically.
Well, what do you think about the fact that Clinton is going to pull it out? We have a segment coming up with Elizabeth Drew in a minute. Do you think he can pull it out and get reelected? Would you vote for him again?
Oh, yeah.
You would?
Well, it depends on who he's running against.
Would you prefer a Democrat challenge him in a primary and run and be a little more what you want?
Like who?
Bob Kerry, Nebraska.
Kerry doesn't have the charisma that is required here.
Medal of Honor winner, entrepreneur.
What happened to him in the primaries in the last election? Nothing.
Well, he didn't do very well.
So, you know, I think that Clinton probably, his ratings went up after the speech, as long and tedious as some of these people think it was.
Does it impress you that Barbara Streisand, for instance, thinks he's a wonderful person?
Well, I like Barbara. Barbara's a brilliantly talented woman, you know.
She is.
She really...
What do you think she meant when Clinton wanted to sit next to Sharon Stone at a dinner and Barbara got upset and said, Why would he want to sit next to her? What the hell she know about policy?
Did she say that?
Yeah, she did. How brilliant is that? I mean,
well, you know, love is blind sometimes.
Love is blind.
And she loves Clinton, and maybe she doesn't see that little male piggy side of him. You know, there is that little womanizing side that he's got.
What do you like about Hillary? You mentioned Hillary, and I think we haven't seen. She's given up the co-presidency. You know, when they got elected, she announced she was co-president, and he announced she was co-president, and then she took health care in the tank, and she's been, I guess, in the kitchen baking brownies.
Well, she never had a chance, but no matter which way she went, in the beginning when she said, I'm not going to be baking no cookies, people turned on her. Then she got sweet and they turned on her. There was no way for her to win because we're just not prepared for a woman with that much power.
Actually, the truth is that, do you find that getting power by marrying a powerful man is a good way to get ahead?
That's not my way.
Okay.
It's never been my way to do it. I mean, I make my own living.
Well, you don't even marry the guy. You got him sitting out here, and he's 13 years. The guy's sitting out here, and he doesn't know.
Comes with me everywhere.
And he doesn't. And you don't want to marry.
He finds me incredibly fascinating, I guess.
Well, actually, you are pretty fascinating.
Am I right?
Yeah, you're.
Well, listen,
it was
sweet.
Nice to have you on the show tonight.
I enjoyed myself very much.
All right, and she's going to be in Norwalk, Connecticut soon. She's a terrific comedienne and a good partner in crime here.
I had a ball.
You know, okay, well, thank you very much.
You're
for
welcome.
Coming. Okay, coming up next, we're going to find out about the Clintons from a really fine Washington journalist. Elizabeth Drew is here. Years ago, I used to hang out in Washington a little bit, and I knew her some, and she is, I think, a liberal, but she'll deny that. But the fact is, she's also a very good journalist, and I think works hard at being fair. So we'll see what happens right after these messages. Stay with us.
People, they climb in with cold feet, then sing.
Oh, I hear you, but I got men leaving toothpaste all over me.
And then they use soft scrub. I mean, it cleans up